What's up, everybody? So today's guest, she is an elite level athlete, an elite level person, and an amazing advocate for mental health and gratitude and what it means just to be a better person and doing things for things that are greater and causes that are greater than yourself. If everybody was like Nina, the world would probably be a substantially better place to live in. So, without further ado, enjoy this episode with the amazing Nina Kucheran. Thank you.
In a minute?
Yeah. Nina, I'm really, first and foremost, welcome to the show. I'm really grateful you're able to kind of donate your time to me and the audience today. So I'm really stoked about it. I'm really excited that we're able to catch up. And yeah, welcome to the show. So thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Awesome. No worries. So take us through kind of your timeline from your decisions leaving post-secondary, your transition to kind of where we are now, and then we'll go all the way through it full circle.
Okay. That's a whole big picture. In 2017, I was making like my decision of like where to go to college.
Yeah.
Considered schools in Canada, also considered schools in the U.S. It would have been cool to go to a Canadian school, but they can't really offer much as far as like athletic scholarships and stuff. So I decided I wanted to go to the U.S. So I took a few recruiting trips. Went to University of Iowa, University of South Carolina, and Florida State University, and fell in love with FSU when I went there. Yeah, so freaking loved it. So committed there, finished up my last year of high school, and then started swimming at Florida State in 2018. Yeah, so I'm there for 4 years, 4-ish years. So my third year, I took a redshirt year for Olympic trials because I wanted to stay back and train for that. Yeah. So I took a redshirt year that year, but I finished in 4 years, and then I just committed to University of Florida this year.
So, what was it that sold you on FSU?
I think, well, for one, the weather. Like, I feel like placing yourself in an environment where you can see yourself being happy and, like, actually wanting to live, like, that's crucial, right? Like, where you can just feel yourself being happy. So, like, campus was gorgeous. Weather was amazing. I was like, oh my gosh, I could definitely see myself living here for 4 years. And also, like, the team was just, like, a really big family. Like, I think out of all the schools, like, the trips that I took and stuff, like, they were just, like, really close, the team. And they had, like, a really good team chemistry, and I really got along with the coaches. And, like, at the end of the day, I feel like it's, like, making the decisions, like, where can I see myself flourishing the most for 4 years? And it just, like, I pictured myself committing to Iowa, and then I pictured myself committing to South Carolina, and I was like, it just did not feel right. Like, so I could really just see myself at FSU, so that's kind of how I made the decision.
Nice. I guess that would play a big role. What's the difference? Like, take me through the application process for people who don't know, and I'm a little fuzzy on the details, but applying to a post-secondary school in the States versus here.
Yeah, so you have to take an SAT, which is basically just like a big, like, standardized test, like similar to like I don't even know what a similar test would be for, like, in Canada, maybe like a GMAT or something, like like a GRE, like what you take for grad school. But it's like in high school, so you have to take an SAT. And then just send in your grades, and you pretty much get into the school on your own. But then, like, the swimming provides, like, the scholarship for school. Oh, sick. So if you're an athlete, the way it works for swimming is, like, you can enter yourself in this thing called college swimming, like, when you're in high school, so the coaches can see that you're interested in going to the U.S. Yeah. And then from there, they can reach out to you, or you can reach out to them. So I actually reached out to FSU first. Oh, no. They were, like, one of the last schools I started talking to. Honestly, when I started talking to them, it was, like, July, which is pretty late for the recruiting process, but I was like, I just want to take a free trip to Florida, like, recruiting trip. I just thought it'd be fun to go and see. Like, I didn't think I was actually going to end up, like, going there. But yeah, like, the scholarship they offered me was really good, and then I fell in love with it when I went, and yeah, that's kind of how it all shook out.
Jeez. Now, I'm curious, in that process, does the program play effect? Because I know, like, into making that decision, because I know for me, leaving high school, my whole vision was, I want to live in Ottawa, right? I guess it must have, I mean, it was obviously different for you, being, like, sports focused, but it was just for the swimming was the focus more so than it was the program? It was kind of that was on the back burner, or did you want to find something that you're also, in my case, I was intrigued in, like, building construction, building design, and the science behind buildings and houses and stuff and how it all works. Was that kind of like a similar way where you're like, you know what, I'll pick something that looks cool? Or was it kind of just swimming focused, this is the one that would kind of suit best to what I'm doing?
Yeah, I would say definitely more swimming focused, because when I ended up graduating with a degree in exercise physiology, but I changed my degree. So when I went out of high school, I thought I wanted to be a bio major. And that's like a pretty like general degree.
Yeah,
you know, like you're like what you went to school for. That's pretty like specific,
yeah,
right? Like
specific.
bio is like any school has that.
Yeah.
So I was like, I could go to any school and get a bio degree. So really, when I made the decision, it was like for swimming, because I could go get a degree in biology at any Canadian or American university. But I was like, I want to pick the place where I can really see myself flourishing in like swimming. Because like for what I wanted to do, I was like, oh, I'll have more school after. So I just wanted to like pick somewhere that I'd enjoy for swimming for my undergrad, and then ended up not liking bio. So then I like changed. But
interesting. I find there's a lot of that takes place, and I almost wish, like, there's something to be said about finishing something that you started, but then there's also, on the flip side, it's something that's, it's way, way better. That's like, oh, I've committed to 4 years. Do I go, you know what, I don't like this, let's switch. Right? Yeah. So it's cool that you're able to kind of make that acknowledgement of your life and go, ooh, okay, let's shift a little bit, but still keep the swimming as a like focus for the forefront.
Well, I'd say I know in American universities, like your first 2 years of school are pretty general. Like my first year, I had to take a lot of like gen ed classes, so switching my major didn't really play that big of a difference into it because it was just like general classes. So that's like the good thing.
Interesting.
But yeah, I just got into like I was looking at like the program map for like biology, and it was all like plant and like diversity classes, and I was like, that's not what I'm interested in. Whereas like exercise physiology is all about like the human body, and like the degree that I got was like actually really useful for like my swimming and stuff.
Oh,
like,
sick!
Yeah, like,
you're kind of like I guess it's all exercise science and movement. It's all just movement, kinetics, and kinesiology and stuff. Yeah, interesting. So what I'm curious about too is in that time frame, were you like in terms of swimming? When did you decide that you're like, I want to pursue this at an elite level? Like, when did you make that decision? Did you make it off well before you, like, graduated high school, or was that just kind of made, like, well before?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, when I was younger, like, I think when you're a kid, it's important to explore, like, all different passions. And I'm really lucky that, like, my parents never, like, forced swimming on me. It was never, like, Nina has to swim. It was, like, whatever I wanted to do, I could do. So my sister and I, we did, like, you know, gymnastics, figure skating, all land sports that I'm not good at. And then I just, like, you know, found swimming when I was, like, younger, and I just really liked it. So that's kind of what I kept going with, and I was naturally better at it than other sports. So obviously that helps. Like, I think you like things more that you're, like, better at.
Yeah, or that you pick up quickly as well.
No, exactly. So I was just better at it, so I liked it. And then I, like, as I got into, like, early high school, I started, like, qualifying for nationals, and then I made my first Olympic trials team. But then I had, like, some injuries and stuff, like, early in high school, and then I wasn't really enjoying it as much, and I picked up running a little bit. But I'd say by grade 11... I was getting invited to like junior team Canada camps and stuff like that, and I was just still really enjoying it, and I was like, okay, I think this is a point where I want to make swimming a focus for the next few years, because there's like a really small window in your life where you kind of get to pursue those kind of things. So I'd say by grade 11 I was like, okay, I want to try and go Division 1 and try and find somewhere where I can like pursue swimming to the like fullest potential, I guess.
Interesting. Did you always see it being like an Olympic, like a vision of like, oh, I'm gonna make the Olympics? Like, is that's the end all be all of goals, or is there like some form of you or some part of you that wants to kind of like be like a beacon of this, or like represent something greater than the sport?
Yeah, well, I think like, I mean, I know for me, like, and I know a lot of kids are like this, like, when you start doing sports when you're a kid, you're like, I'm gonna go to the Olympics, you know, like, everyone thinks that that's and then, you know, I reached an age where I was like, oh my gosh, like, there's actually a chance that I could actually do this. I actually could, and, like, that's amazing, but I think in, like, my early years, like, especially, like, I experienced a lot of performance anxiety, like, in high school and, like, my first few years of college, and I think that came from, like, putting all my identity and all the pressure in swimming, and, like, I don't think, like, I think that comes from having really high expectations, but also putting all of your identity in the expectations. Right. So I would say that, like, my goals haven't changed. Like, I still want to try and make an Olympic team. Like, I still want to try and make national teams. Like, those are definitely still
Paris
my goals.
2024, like, baby.
Right?
Yeah,
and that hasn't changed, but I think I've been able to change my focus over the course of my swimming career, where it's like, you know, my identity isn't in the swimming. It's in, like, so much more than that, because through swimming I've gotten to meet, like, these amazing people from all across the country that I get to go visit, and, like, you know, I've gotten a degree and all these amazing experiences. So I'd say, like, yeah, that's always been a goal, and it will continue to be a goal, but I don't necessarily put all of my identity in the sport in the goals, because I think that's how you get really, like, anxious about swimming and start hating it, and I think enjoying it is, like, the biggest part.
Oh, it's almost a weird way of finding, like, balancing it, right? It's like, if you don't put so much pressure, and I've talked to many people at an elite level that say exactly this similar thing, they look at it as, if they put, like you said, all that pressure on this one thing, it allows for the disappointment, and you can't enjoy it as much, like you're saying. Right? It's
well,
like
the
you
thing
fall
is,
out
like,
of love.
Right, and like pressure is a privilege. Like I think that's
Yeah.
one thing that like I've been able to like shift as well. It's like I used to look as pressure as like a bad thing. Like, oh my gosh, what if I choke? What if I don't do this? But it's like pressure is a privilege. Like you've worked hard enough to be able to feel that pressure, and I should feel privileged to get that. But you know, swimming is what I do. It's not who I am. So that's been like a big shift in like my mindset over the last few years of like, you know, like my goals haven't changed, but they've, I guess the process behind my goals has. It's not like if I don't ever make a national team, I'm gonna hate myself and hate my swimming career. Like I'm still very happy with what I've done in swimming, but it's not who I am. It's just what I do, and I happen to love it, so that's really cool.
Amazing. Yeah, that's nice. That probably helps.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be doing it if I didn't love it. I see too many people that, you know, don't enjoy sports, and then for them not enjoying it, they bring other people around them down, and that's never something or someone that I want to be. So as long as I'm enjoying it, I'm going to keep shooting for the stars and seeing where we end up.
So I want to back up a little bit. So you mentioned the first couple of years of university was you took a lot of general courses. Now, I know in my experience with my general courses, they were pretty almost silly, for lack of a better word. They're kind of silly, the ones we had, or the things we had to do in those classes. I'm curious, do you have one that stands out as like, I can't believe this is a class, or I can't believe we had to do this for a class?
I mean, there's probably two that I can think of. The first is like American history.
Okay.
Just because like I was an exercise science major, and I'm like, American history, A, I'm not American, B, this is not really what I want to study. But again, I mean, I'm living in a different country, so it's good to learn the history, but at the same time I was like, I could be taking some other class that would actually benefit what I want to do. And the other one is history of music, which was like a general art elective I had to take.
That could be cool.
It wasn't.
No?
And that's coming from someone who's like, I love music.
Yeah, I was like, don't you play music?
Yeah, I play a bunch of instruments. Like, I love it, but it really wasn't cool. Like, studying, like, the science behind, like, opera music and, like, how they compose and stuff. It was just, not my vibe.
No.
But, yeah, for some reason, you need all these general credits in the U.S. So, you know, I knocked those out and then actually enjoyed the second half of my degree. But
it almost feels like a colossal waste of time.
Oh, yeah. I'm
But,
like, I can't believe, like... Yeah, no, I was like, I can't believe money was spent on this course.
Yeah, how is this okay?
Yeah.
Like, I think that, honestly, though, Nina, I think that might be the schools operating at it as a business, because that's all they are, right? Schools are just big businesses. We've just fallen into a trap where it's okay for everybody to participate. And I just think it's something that, looking back on, like, the time I had and hearing what you're saying, like, what? How is that okay?
Yeah.
You know, like, I had a class called Achieving Success in the 21st Century.
Oh, great.
Her name was Debbie. She was the best. But everything about the class was silly. Like, it was not fun. We had to do one presentation that was kind of, it was a debate style. And then we had one that was, we were arguing, like, the ethics behind something. And then we were arguing against somebody else's. And I think my friend and I came up with this plan to do the same topic for every single presentation we had. It was like one a week. I was already okay at public speaking, but I got even better at it through this because it was just horrendous. Yeah. So I was like, this is ridiculous. And we debated whether marijuana should be legal or not. And then we debated the ethics behind why it should be, and then why it shouldn't be in another presentation the following week. And then I remember my buddy Nick, like, explaining thoroughly, like, the contents of THC. And I was just, what is happening? I'm like, I remember sitting in the back of the class. Yeah, I was like, this is $400 for me to take this again. I was like, do we fail just out of pure don't want to go, or do we? I'm like, no, we should probably. We ended up all doing well because I don't think they can fail you in those things.
Well, if it's all opinion based, you can't really fail someone.
Yeah. I guess it's if you're just in the good graces of a teacher, then it kind of seems to be okay.
That's fair.
Maybe. So, now, you're going into your 5th year, right? Mm-hmm. Now, you recently made a change, right? And so this was very fascinating, because I like to do research about my guests, but not do research, right? So I like to just ask and kind of go with the flow.
Right.
But at the same time, with this specific thing, I was told to read it, and then I went against my judgment of doing that. And I want you to explain to us. So you were originally going to go for your 5th year, that's for your master's, at University of California, right?
Berkeley, yeah.
Yeah, Berkeley. So you didn't. Now, take us through the beginning of kind of when that decision went from you going to Berkeley to kind of like the first time you were introduced as this being an option for you to kind of, okay, why'd you make the decision? Because I don't want to give any information. I want you to tell this because I think it's very, very fascinating and I'm very, very intrigued by it.
No, for sure. I'd say like the past year of my life has been like really exciting, and also like really confusing and really stressful. But that's the beauty of life. Those cycles always repeat themselves, right? Yeah, but so last year I took a redshirt year to be able to train for Olympic trials just because of the quarantines and stuff.
Right.
So I still did school throughout that year, but I was coming back to FSU. Like, so a year ago I'd be going back to FSU for what was my 4th year, but really it was my 3rd year competing because I missed out on a year competing.
Right.
And at first I thought I might extend my undergrad and stay for 5th year at FSU.
Yeah.
But then, like, when I got back, I just started thinking about, you know, what I want to accomplish academically and both athletically, and started to think that maybe FSU wasn't the place where I wanted to keep going my swimming career. And that being said, I had the most amazing experience there. Like, the coaches were really, really great to me. I met some amazing, amazing people that'll be, like, friends for life for me. And my coach this past year, his name was Steve Wood. He was, like, an unbelievable guy. We had a really good relationship.
That's awesome.
Shout out to Steve. He was so awesome. Love Steve. But there was just some things, like, you know, I was like, you know, I think I want to get a master's degree. And I also think I want to swim somewhere where, you know, if I wanted to make a run for another Olympic team, they had a pro team going, where at FSU right now, we don't have a pro team. It's just collegiate kids. So I was like, if I wanted to stay and do that for a pro year, it'd be kind of tough because I'd be the only one doing that. So last September, I spoke to my head coach, and he was super understanding about the whole thing, which was really nice. And I was like, listen, I think academically, there's somewhere that's going to be a better fit for me, as well as somewhere where I can find a pro team and swim for. Mentioned, like, you know, I'm obviously going to finish up my last year, graduate from here, super thankful for that, but I want to enter the portal to be able to explore options beyond that to just fulfill my athletic and academic goals. And they were super understanding. All my coaches were even, like, helpful in finding other places for me, which was really, really cool and really nice. Because a lot of people don't have those relationships with their coaches, so I was, like, super thankful for that. So I entered the portal, and off the bat, first school I started talking to was actually University of Florida, because 2 of my best friends actually go there, so it was an easy kind of way in. And they had a master's degree that was super appealing to me, master's in Kineseology and Human Performance, kind of right up my alley, my undergrad. And I was like, that's really cool. And yeah, like, the team is very accomplished, very successful. They have, like, you know, Caleb Dressel, Katie Ledecky, like, world record holders training there. So I was like, oh, like, that's a really good pro team. So I started talking to them and was definitely really interested. And then one of my old coaches who I swam for reached out, wanting to pick my brain about where I wanted to swim and stuff, and he mentioned, well, you should email Terry McKeever at Cal. And in my head I'm going, ooh, like, I don't know if I'm good enough to get enough money or, like, a scholarship at Cal, because Cal is, like, a historical, like, really, really great program. So is Florida, mind you.
Right.
But I was just like, okay, let me just reach out and have a phone call, and you know what, maybe if it just allows me to network with one of the most successful women coaches in history, like, that's really cool.
100%,
yeah, so I emailed one of the assistant coaches, spoke with her, and then connected with Terry, the coach at Cal, the next week, and had a really, really great conversation with her. Like, we connected really good off the bat. And she was like, we need a breaststroker. Like, I think I just got lucky. They really needed a breaststroker. And wanted someone to come in and fill the spot. And I was like, all right. And did I just mess this up?
Oh yeah, do what you want. Yeah, it's your episode, Nina. You can do what you want. You can take it out. You can do whatever.
So she was like, let's get you out on a trip. So I flew to Berkeley in December, and I took a recruiting trip. I was there for literally a day, so flew across the country for like a day, but I got to meet her, I got to meet the team, and I loved the campus. I loved Terry. We had a really good relationship, really great conversation. After that, I was like, okay, I want to swim here. I didn't even know what master's programs were available, but I was like, I want to swim here. And the only one-year master's program they had was a master's in education. Now, I don't really care about getting a master's in education, but I was like, for the swimming piece, I think it's going to be worth it for me to go to Cal.
100%.
Yeah, so in March, I finally made the decision, called the coaches at Florida, told them I was going to go to Cal. I was like...
March!
Yeah, well, it took me a while to make the decision because I was balancing both schools, and I was also talking to other schools on top of that, like Virginia Tech, a few other good schools I was talking to. And it was hard for me to say no to UF because I did really like the school, but at the end of the day, I wanted to go to Cal for Terry, and for the girls that were there.
And the program.
Yeah, and the program, they also have a history of, like, you know, excellence, like 5-time national title, and just really good swimming. And one of my best friends, Maggie McNeil, who's Olympic gold medalist last summer, also committed there. So we had plans to live together. It was like this perfect, you know, you make this perfect plan in your head, and then God laughs in your face.
And he's like, basically not quite.
Yeah, and then so late May, this article was released where a bunch of swimmers came forward alleging verbal abuse on account of the coach and stuff, which is really tough. I don't really want to get too much into that because I wasn't there for a lot of it, so I can't speak on it. I can speak for my relationship with Terry, which I had a really good relationship with her, and I really liked her, but I can't really speak for much of the things in the article. But so she was put on leave. There's an investigation, and then a bunch of the girls started entering the transfer portal, transferring out.
That's
Maggie,
stressful.
Yeah, Maggie decommitted, and then I went to Europe for a month after that, and I was just pondering all this information.
Yeah, best way to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But so at one point, I was so set on going to Cal and swimming with Maggie and Terry, and really ready for that change. It was going to be a big change, moving out to the West Coast, but I was ready for that. But the more I thought about it, I was like, academically that it's a great school, but it wasn't really, the master's in education wasn't really a program that I wanted to do. I was more going to go there for the swimming and to get a really good degree from a good school.
Right.
But it didn't feel right anymore. It didn't, in my gut, I just didn't have a good feeling about it. So I texted one of the coaches who recruited me at UF, and we had a really good relationship, and I was lucky to have another phone call with her and see if the option to come was still available, since I had already gotten into that program. And it just worked out that they still had a spot for me. And yeah, I just felt it in my gut. I was like, I think for swimming, this is going to be a really good thing for me. And also academically, it's a program that lines up with my goals beyond swimming. Master's in Kineseology is something that I'm actually passionate about.
Amazing.
Yeah, so 3 weeks ago, I made the decision. It was a big one, but I was like, I'm changing my commitment.
No
and
kidding.
yeah. So basically, I made this whole grand plan. God laughed in my face, but I mean, everything happens for a reason.
Yeah,
and I think,
nope.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's up to me to make the most of the experience, but I feel really good about it. So I'm going to Florida in the fall, back to Florida, but different Florida, and I'm really excited about it.
Is it, where are the campuses based?
Where I was and where I'm going?
Yeah.
So Florida State University was in Tallahassee, which is North Florida.
Yes.
University of Florida is in Gainesville. Yeah,
yes,
which is
I
2
know
hours
that.
south. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's not too bad. That's sick. It's almost like you're in the same... Oh, amazing.
No, it's cool because I'm
that's
still
cool.
close to a bunch of my friends that are still going to be at FSU, and I'm going to get to race them, which is going to be kind of weird.
Yeah.
Just because I raced for them for so long, now I'm going to race against them for a rival school.
Talking crap.
Yeah, I was honestly a little bit worried about that when I committed, just because Florida State and UF are big rivals, obviously.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, everyone's been super supportive. My old coaches, my teammates. I think at the end of the day, if anyone isn't supportive, they're not really a true friend of mine.
Yeah, and in that case, you don't want to their opinion holds no merit.
Yeah.
Right, and there's no value to it. So it kind of makes it almost easier for me to, when people are negative, it's just, first of all, it's exhausting being negative, right? So it's why not? And I was talking to my buddy about this because he's got 2 kids, young kids, and they're the sweetest kids, and all the friends, they're all really nice. And how are they so positive about everything, but we're also upset? It's oh, we're born really nice and kind, and then we just kind of get molded into these people who are just upset.
Yeah.
All the time, right? And that was kind of something I've noticed. And I'm why did we do that? So it's cool that you're aware of the negative, and you're nah, that doesn't really matter. They're not supportive. They're not my friend. You're able to kind of shut it off easier instead of oh, well, you're friends of mine, but I don't feel that way, or why are you being so critical?
And luckily I haven't had any of that. Honestly, the response has been really good, but on that topic I totally agree with that. We're all born a certain way, and then life experiences, different things can shape you into having a certain mindset. But one thing, because I've struggled with, is caring too much about what people think, or worrying about what others think of me and my decisions, but at the end of the day it's your life. And what someone told me one time, that's always stayed with me, it's you shouldn't not care what people think, because if you truly didn't care what anyone thought, you'd be a sociopath, and that's not good.
Right.
But it's about caring about what the right people think.
Right,
you have core people in your life that know your values, and that their values line up with you, and it's about caring what those people think, not about what the people that don't truly have your best interests are. So I always remember that in situations. It's
amazing.
Okay, I don't care what you think. I care what the right people think.
Yeah,
the right people in my
how you're
life,
able to remind, and how you're able to remind yourself of those right people are saying that. Yeah, and keeping. I find each person also, to your point, has a role in your life, right? I have friends of mine who, you need friends who you're able to just goof around, drink, have a bunch of good times, go fishing, train with, and it's all fun. And then you need friends that, and I'm grateful enough to have them, and I'm sure you do as well, where they hold you accountable for things, right? They check you at the door, and they're all right, what's going on? Or people that you're lucky, back after I just graduated high school and in the beginning years of college, I was it wasn't okay to be not okay, right? Whereas now, thankfully, it's been okay where society's allowed us to go in the direction that we can express if anything's going wrong in our lives. Yep. Whereas now, we used to live in this, we can't share the weakness, whereas now we can share that and be a bit more open and vulnerable to people close to us. And I'm lucky enough that I have people in my life that are able to not just keep me accountable and check me, but be like, hey man, like, you can talk to me if things are going wrong. And it's so refreshing, so reassuring to be able to have those people that you can go to. And I think the support long term with that, just overall really amazing.
Oh, I completely agree. Yeah, I definitely think society's going in the right direction with that, with like having more conversations around the stigma of like mental health in sports and just in general. Because I think it's like, you know, not okay to play the victim, but always okay to talk about things that like aren't going right, or like having people in your life that you can like share how you're feeling about, because it's never good to keep that inside. Like I think everyone's done that for a certain point in your life, and that doesn't really get you anywhere. Like you have to have those people that you're able to, you know, speak out when like you're not feeling okay or if things are going on. Yeah, definitely agree with that. Like it's important to talk about those things.
Very. On that topic, tell me about this kind of pairs with something that I also want to ask you, but tell me about the hidden opponent, sorry.
Yeah,
tell me about that.
Is like one of the most amazing organizations ever. Yeah, so it's an organization that promotes mental health in sports, like just raising awareness around the stigma of mental health. So as a student athlete for anywhere in North America, so like Canada and the US, if you're a student athlete, current or former, you can be a campus captain, and what that is you're basically just an advocate for mental health and athletics. So you're raising awareness around campus, like you know, tabling events, like just talking to different people on campus, setting up hidden opponent chapters for your school. And yeah, it's basically just a big platform to raise a conversation and to share resources and to meet and connect with other people that maybe have gone through similar things. Yeah, and it's been really one of the best parts of my undergraduate experience, just because like my first few years in college, I mean, I was having a lot of fun, it was really good, but again, like kind of going back to like a lot of like the pressures that I felt, I always felt this like huge pressure to perform, and honestly I think most of the pressure was pressure that I was feeling or putting on myself. Right. But I had nowhere to go with it. Like
there's no outlet.
Yeah, there was no outlet. I didn't feel like I could really talk to everyone or anyone. I was just basically like a walking ball of mess. Like I just like I wasn't happy, and I wasn't sharing it with anyone, and I was super emotional all the time, and you know, I was depressed, I was anxious, and I went through a really hard time during COVID where I was like, holy shit, like I'm really not okay. Yeah. And it takes vulnerability to be able to, you know, reach out and get help, and I did, and I still do, which has been like one of the best. It takes
confidence too to admit you're that vulnerable, or to be that vulnerable in front of people, right?
Yeah, it's absolutely.
Like, especially strangers more often than not.
No, for sure. But I was like, I reached a point where I was like, I'm really not healthy. I'm not okay, and like, you know, it's affecting my swimming, but it was affecting all aspects of my life. Like I was so anxious all the time, and anyways, so I got help, and through the hidden opponent I've been able to like, you know, share some of those resources, and now I just think it's really important to be like candid about like, you know, because obviously on social media and stuff, social media is great, but it's also really dangerous because you're seeing the best part of people's lives all the time, right? And the reality is that's like 5% of what people go through, probably even less. So it's like through the hidden opponent, you're like, I just feel like I'm allowed to share a side of me that maybe isn't shared enough on social media, of people like admitting like, hey, I struggle with this, here's how you can get help. So it's basically just a really big platform where student athletes can connect with others and like share resources on that. So it's been one of my favorite parts, being a campus captain for them for 3 years during my undergrad, and it's been like really awesome.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And I like that it always comes up, but social media being that tool, I've used it as when I was in South America for a couple weeks, I was doing this service trip, and one of the guys there was like, his whole thing was like digital marketing and media, right? And he's like, if anybody wants to talk to me about it, I'd love to tell. And that was how like he kind of introduced himself. I love the guy. His most watched podcast, he was the guest. So I was like, amazing. Love the guy to death. Shout out Joe. And Joe's like, hey, so yeah, anybody want to talk about this? I'll gladly share my insights. And so nobody ever really, I guess, took him up on the offer. But I was like, hey, Joe. You know, all the girls went to bed and did their thing, and I was like by myself. So I was like, you know, my brain's still like firing on all cylinders. I'm like, I need to be stimulated more mentally. So I'm like, hey, Joe, do you have an hour or two to kill? And he's like, yeah. I was like, sweet, you want to grab a cup of coffee? And this is like in our like chalet, like in our hut. And I was like, dude, like, let's grab a cup of Java, and I want to pick your brain. He's like, okay. So the main thing that he said that stuck with me, though, is using it as a tool to connect. Because it's very, very good if you can do that. But, like you said, the less than like 5% or something of the, and usually when I'm sitting on my phone feeling like crap,
right?
And then I'm like, oh, everybody's doing dope shit. Oh, I check my bank account. Nope, can't fly there right now.
Yep.
Shit. And so I'm going through, I'm like, it's not healthy, but I've been able to, in the last month or two, I've deleted it off my phone. Like I've deleted my personal Instagram off my phone, and TikTok, Snapchat, all that. I use my Instagram on my laptop, so I check it at night so I can communicate, And the only time I've had it in the last month was when we video called. And then I deleted it right away after, because I was like, I can't use it. It's something that unless I'm using it as a tool to connect, it's not something that I can't. Because I'm like, my brain goes very, very bad. You might be not as bad for this, but I like really hate, I compare and compare and compare. And it's
but we
brutal.
all do it though.
Yeah.
We all do it, and that's the thing. Like you said, social media is so great and so beautiful because it allows us to connect. Like for me, love Snapchat because I get to see pictures of like my friends' faces who live in different countries. Like it's so awesome. And social media, I get to see what people are doing. But then there's the flip side of that where you said you're scrolling, going, oh my gosh, well all I did was work 12 hours today. But it's like, God gave everyone different gifts for different things, and we all have different seasons in our life where we're going to be doing different things, and it's not wrong of you to just be in a different season than someone else, but our brains can't always comprehend that when we're just scrolling and comparing all the time.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. Like, I think it's important on social media to use it, like to connect and to, post things that make you happy, but also to be honest and just share things that, like, could maybe help someone else if they're scrolling and seeing, oh, well, I'm feeling like shit, and seeing, oh, well, Nina struggles with this too. Okay, well, I'm not the only one. Well, it's like, you're guaranteed not the only one. Like we all do, but it's just social media is so, used to just promote your best self all the time. Yeah. And although it's great, but that's not you all the time. So
no, and like you said, more often than not, very small amount.
Yeah, yeah. So I think the Hidden Opponent does a great job of that because they allow, we get put in group meets with student athletes from all across the country in different regions.
Oh, sick.
We can connect with them, have weekly calls.
That's so cool.
And then just they share a lot of resources for different things, like pressure in sports. There's video conferences on different, like body image issues,
oh, wow.
Yeah, just a lot of really cool resources. Yeah, so it's been, like, awesome for me and also to be able to share that with some of my teammates at FSU, and I hope to keep doing that in UF and stuff. I'm going to keep going as a campus captain, but yeah, it's like...
That's sick.
Yeah, they're an amazing organization, and they speak for, like, really important cause, something that obviously affected me personally, but I think that affects a lot of people, so...
Everybody, yeah. I mean, like you said, sociopath, if it doesn't.
Yeah.
Right? So, have you, and it could be the Hidden Opponent or any other time in that space in dealing with, like, mental health and being an advocate for it, right? What's one thing, you don't have to name the person, or if you want to, you can, up to you, totally, that you kind of heard of an experience or somebody came to you with something that they may have not felt okay with dealing, or they came to you with something very, very serious and was like, Nina, I need to tell somebody this, or like it gets bad. Do you have something similar to that, or something that like your brain goes to?
Wait, like so if someone's coming to me with something that they're facing personally?
Yeah. Do you have one that stands out that you're like, ooh, wow, didn't know this was a thing or something? Something that stands out?
I mean, I haven't had anything where I've been like, oh, I didn't know that this was a thing. Just more like, I feel privileged that if people feel comfortable enough to come to me with their problems or things that they're experiencing, like that's a huge. I feel really privileged on my part that they're coming to me for that.
Right.
So there hasn't been anything where I've been like, oh my gosh, like I didn't know that this was happening, because I've seen a lot of stuff. You know, well, I'm sure I haven't seen anything, but like, like I have had, teammates and people approach me with problems and different things that they're struggling with, and like, it always breaks my heart whenever like someone approaches me with something that like they're dealing with, but also like definitely feel privileged to be able to help them, and like sometimes you don't always have the right answers for people, but you can like point them in the direction of someone that can, like I'm always
that's
like,
huge.
I can get you in touch with someone that can help.
That's huge.
I see this counselor, I can get you in touch with her. Like I'm always like, you can't always fix other people's problems, but you can always like be there to have the conversation and point them in the right direction. So yeah, I feel like if ever someone's like approached me in the last few years with like, hey, I'm really struggling with this, it's just like, well, I'm really privileged that you felt comfortable enough with me to share that with me, because that's a really super hard thing to do, right? Is to put yourself in like a vulnerable position to tell someone like, hey, I'm not okay. And I hope I not promote myself, but I hope like, staying true to myself is being someone who like, you can always
right, but you want to put that message out there.
Yeah, I do. So I feel like trying to live to my truest self is putting out that message that like, you know, I'm going to be real with you all the time. So like you can come to me and be real with your stuff all the time too. So I hope that that's like what I portray to people. That's what I try to do anyways.
Amazing.
But yeah, whenever people come to me with things, like it's always like sad if it's someone who's struggling with something really big, and I can't always be the solution to their problem, but I can always like point them in the right direction.
That's so powerful.
It is, because I've had people do that for me, right? Where like when I was like younger and like didn't know where to go, like, you know, opening yourself up to that one person, and it happened to be someone who was like really helpful and then points you in the right direction where you're getting help. Like I've had people do that for me, so I just want to be able to do that for other people, you know?
Amazing.
Because sports are hard. Sports are beautiful and amazing. Like swimming has given me the world of opportunities and like so many experiences and things. Like you can't even put a price on like what swimming has given me. But it also comes with like a lot of baggage too, I guess. So I always want to put the message of like gratitude, but also like it's okay if you're struggling with things, because like everyone does, you know.
Yeah, and I think to your point, and I didn't know how bad it was, but so I used to have a strategy for the podcast where I would ask friends of guests like, "Hey, yo, listen, is there anything interesting that they might not be sharing with a lot of people?" Because like my whole idea with the show is like, I don't want it to just be the basic surface level crap. I'm like, I want to fucking go deep, right?
Yeah.
And so that's where I really thrive, and I think the human connection really is like in the deep like trenches of like, okay, we're bonding, we're connecting, we feel like open enough and vulnerable enough, but also self-confident, or have enough self-confidence inside that we're able to kind of share these parts of ourselves with each other. And I think doing that is incredible. And what I found out is when I had a friend of mine named Zach, shout out to Zach, still a good friend of mine, and he did the show with me last summer before I had any of this built, but it was the first one in here, so that was cool. And shout out to Zach. I was asked a few friends of his that I was like, man, like we had trained a couple times together, and I was like he talked about wanting to do the show, so I was like, yeah, man, oh yeah, that's cool. Yeah, if you ever need somebody, I'm like, I'd love to. So I was like, awesome. And then I asked a couple mutual friends of ours, I was like, hey, what are some things I could dive in? Because he's not on social media, right? So I'm like, ooh, it's not as easy as just finding articles. He's not in the space that much. So I'm like, ooh, it's tougher. So I call some friends, and they're like, yo, ask him about mental health. Like, that's going to be your episode. And I was like, okay. So he got to a point where he shared with me the story of how he found his, like, mother hanging in her bedroom, and that was when he was like 22.
That's
23.
some dark stuff.
Yeah, and it was like 45 minutes. I was like, what? Like, I didn't think we could get there. So that was the first time that, and like he seemed past it, I guess. That might not be the best way to put it.
Yeah,
but
probably never get past something like that.
But and he put a way of like, he's like, you don't cope with it, because coping means like you've accepted that it's like that you feel like crap and you live with it. He's like, no, I had to find a way to exceed from it and like use it as a stepping stone to balance. So he took a very interesting approach, which I really admire for. But that was something cool that I was like, I didn't know that this was something I was able to do, like to advocate for that conversation that he was having, that he felt open enough to share with me. It was like, yeah, just got a couple microphones, a couple cameras, a couple lights, and we're just hanging out in my garage.
Yeah, that's
essentially
that's
what
deep.
I was doing. Yeah, and so almost an hour in, being able to share that with me, and then talking about how he was able to move past it was something that, like you said, is like being very fortunate enough to be in my opportunity to advocate a bit for it, different than yours, of course, but being able to be open with people and having that connection is just like really, really cool.
Yeah, well that exact story reminds me of like something that like my mentor told me at school, is like there's gonna be like peaks and valleys in your life always. And like it's always okay to talk about things that aren't going right or things that are affecting you, but it's never okay to be a victim, because as soon as you allow yourself to be the victim, you can't, like you said, exceed from that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's finding the balance of that, of like, yes, talk about it, speak your truth, deal with it, but also knowing that like your mental health is your responsibility.
Amazing.
And that's not anything that anyone else can do for you. Like, that's what I learned. Because, like, when I was in my first years, I was looking for validation from others so much, like, from coaches, from people, like...
You're new. It's a new country.
You're looking for external validation everywhere. But it's, you know what, it's not anyone else's job to fix your mental health. It's your job. Yeah. So your mental health is your responsibility. And it's always okay to speak about how you're feeling and to get help and to talk to people, but it's never okay to be a victim. Because once you're being the victim, you're never going to be able to heal from anything or let yourself move past. So that's always something I remember. It's like, okay, let me feel the way I feel about this. Let me, take a few minutes, and then not a few minutes. Sometimes it's longer than a few minutes. But
it depends on the situation.
Let me deal with this in the best way I can, but never allow myself to be a victim.
Now, what's that process look like the 2 minutes, right? Like, what's that process look like for you?
I think a big thing that I heard this on a podcast one time. Is that, when things happen to you in life, most of the things that happen to you are going to be, I don't want to say most, because a lot of life is in your control. It's how you treat people. It's how you take an outlook on life. It's the choices that you make. Yeah. But a lot of things are going to happen where you can't control it and you can't change it. So, like, when things happen to you that you can't change, it's okay taking a minute and just saying these words. Can't change it.
Yeah.
And I heard that on a podcast, and that's, like, super powerful, because if you can't change it, you're taking the power back to yourself. You're not giving the power to the situation to make you feel a certain way. You're taking that power, like, okay, this might suck. Can't change it. How do you move forward?
Right.
And that's different than, I don't want to get that confused with depression or anxiety, because that's a different that is a state of mind, and that is sometimes a chemical imbalance that you need doctors and you need medication, you need things like that to help.
Absolutely.
But I mean the general process of when things in life happen where you're, looking for things to deal. It's, okay, can I change it? If you can, change it. And if you can't, take that minute, take that deep breath, can't change it, move on.
And I think that's so cool. And the move on part, I've been reading a bit into this when I was at summer camp working a couple weeks ago, helping a friend of mine out and doing some building.
Oh, right, Bob the Builder?
Yeah, that's it, doing some fun stuff, swinging a hammer. And I was reading a book that he had laid out, and I was like, I don't know.
What book?
7 Habits of Highly...
Read that one. Stephen Covey.
Amazing, right? So he talks about, like, proactive and reactive. And that reminds me of the conversation I had with this gentleman, Bruno Gourvemont. It's some French name. But he diffused bombs in the military. Okay. Right? So I was introduced to another guy. Crazy how I met the guy. But, again, another chat I could have for 3 hours. And he talked about similar, like, discussion points of making life happen for you and then reacting to life when letting other people make it happen to, like, for you, right? It's like you have to be proactive versus reacting poorly and then, like you say, like, oh, well, okay, whatever. But, okay, take my minute. I know I'm taking this space. I've allotted X amount of time. I know that this is how, like, this is the stuff, my list of, like, oh, I feel good doing this or that, or I talk to this person, I feel good because of their energy or whatever, right? So I surround myself with that. And then jumping to the, okay, now that we're out of that phase, it's now, I'm good, that's behind me, right? And you're able to transition out of that a bit better, right?
Absolutely. So. Yeah, and I think, like what you said, it's, like, important to have those people that can remind you of that, too.
Yeah.
Because that
huge,
is because that's, like, my general rule, like, can't change it, take your minute. And sometimes, like, I'm going to sit here and tell you, this is what you have to do to move on. Amazing. I'm not perfect at it. Like, I am absolutely not. Like, NCAAs for me this year, I was, supposed to final. I was supposed to do all these things, and I swam, like, absolute shit. And I was devastated. Yeah. And it did not take me a minute. It took me 2 days until one of my teammates, my roommate who I was staying with, like, looked at me, and she was like, we need to get like, you need to stop feeling so bad for yourself. Yeah, and it was her and my boyfriend who were both just like, you can't wallow in self-pity forever, and it's true.
Amazing that those two are able to kind of like...
Yeah, well, like you said, like, you need those people that can, kind of make you realize, like, bring you back to what your values are, and that's one of my values. Can't change it. Take that deep breath and move on, and sometimes it takes longer than a minute, but in the general rule of thumb is, like, if you can't change it and can't control things, you gotta move past it. And that's, like, for sports, that's crucial, right? Because you can't change the performance that just happened. You can learn from it and use that failure to, like, move forward, or you can wallow in it. And that's, like, what I did at NCAAs this year was 2 days of me just, like, moping around until one of my teammates was like, we still got more races left. Like, you gotta... And I was like, you're right.
You're not wrong, yeah.
Yeah. But that's a powerful thing to be able to say, I can't change that, because you're taking the control back from externally to internally. And once you're taking that back, that internal control, I mean, the situation is what you make of it, right? Yeah. It's like you're in the power then.
Right. And being in the power kind of... I'm curious to pick your brain a bit more on this thought, but I was told way back when that it's not, you can't really control much that happens to you. You can only truly control how you react to what happens, right? Like that's, I think, the whole thing. Like you need the control of how you react is, that's the big thing, right? It's like, oh, you say this to this person. It's like, well, how do I react? Do I react negatively? But then all the things that have happened to us in that like moment are what lead us to react a certain way, right? So being able to have those things where, okay, I have my systems in place to have that positive environment, or in your case, like you said a while ago, good weather all around, because like everybody's like, oh, seasonal depression is real. It is real.
Yeah.
Maybe not so much when you're in California or Florida.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, it's a real thing, and it's not fun. It's not an easy thing to get over, and it's not an easy thing to find a way out of. But having those systems in place or those outlets are, humongous. So it's cool that you're able to advocate for that and create like publicity for a lane that's not really driven down much.
Yeah, well, I think especially like if you think about performance anxiety or just anxiety in general in sports, it's always going to come from trying to control, or not always, most of the time, and from what I can speak from personal experience, it's you're going to be trying to control situations that you have no control over. For swimming, it's when I think back to my times where I experienced the worst performance anxiety, it's, worrying about what the people in the lanes beside me are doing, or, oh my gosh, what if I don't make this, or what if I don't win this event? But you can't control what the others are doing, and when I can think back to my very best performances, it's you're not focused on anyone else, you're focused on you. And that was one thing that I had really been working on with my psychologist going into Olympic trials last year was,
amazing.
You've done the work. You got to stand up on the blocks and just trust that you've done all that you can, and you can't control other people. So that was the thing when I stood up to race on the last day of Olympic trials. I was super nervous. Like, I don't think the nerves ever go away. I think nerves is actually a good thing. It means that your body's getting ready to perform. But it's just shifting that focus from external to internal. Right. When you're shifting that back to yourself, it allows you to take control and power of the situation and know that, like, you've done all you can do. It's just up to you to give the best that you can do on that day.
Yeah.
And, I won a best time, and it was great. And
epic.
And if I could do that every time I swim, life would be good. But obviously, it's, there's peaks and the valleys.
Like you said, peaks and valleys doesn't work quite like that.
Yeah.
But how are you able to kind of ground yourself? And what I mean by that is, I think there's a lot of things that I've found that I'm so worried of in the past, or when I'm thinking about the past, or did I, what if, right? That self-doubt kind of creeps up. And it's not a good cycle to get into. It's a deep pit, and it's tough to climb out of. And I think thinking ahead where you're like, oh, what if I don't? Or the, did I? Or what if? It's like we're not living in the now, right? We're not so much in the present. How are you able to, over the years, develop something, or like a ritual, or some, I don't know, what, superstitious or anything, but like, do you have like a routine that gets you focused in the moment? And what does that look like?
I think for me, one of the biggest things that drive me is like my faith. Like, for me, prayer and gratitude is like really powerful. And I think, when you're always worrying about like what's gonna come or what has happened, like you said, you're never living in like the present moment. So, I think prayer is really powerful, and also just knowing that like I believe that like all my days were written before me the day that I was born, so just trusting that like God has a plan, and like if you can focus in on yourself and what's happening and what matters right now, that plan is going to unfold exactly the way that it's supposed to. So I feel like you said, like staying grounded is basically just focusing in the present moment, because if you're focusing on the past or the future, again, you're giving away that control.
100%.
Yeah, you're giving away the control of the situation on things that you can't control. So focusing on like the future and knowing that you can't change what happened in the past, you can only control what's happening now, which is going to affect the future. That's like the biggest thing. It's just, so I think for me, prayer and also gratitude, like I think when I find myself getting really nervous for races and being like, oh my gosh, I don't measure up, like I shouldn't be here, it's like, no, like let me just take a step back. I'm really grateful to be here, listing, like sometimes I'll count on my fingers 10 things I'm grateful for, or 10 things that I've done right. That's a big thing too. I think another thing that grounds me is, this was a book that we read as a women's team at FSU. It's called like 30 Days to Confidence by a girl called Coach Kristen. She's like amazing. But so I have this thing that's called a confidence jar. And so every day I will write something that I'm proud of, like that I did. A physical
amazing. That's the greatest thing I've ever heard. Sick.
The thing is, people will say, oh, confidence jar, and they'll keep it in your head. You're not going to remember.
No.
You're not going to remember.
Having a physical one?
Yeah.
So when you
what I do is, it's a little gray box that I keep in my room.
Nina, that's brilliant.
And, sometimes what I write in my confidence jar looks like I crushed that set I did times I never thought I could do. Boom, plop it in there. And sometimes it's I was really anxious today and I finished practice. Boom, plop it in there.
Yeah.
Or sometimes it's, I did 6 dolphin kicks off the wall for every push-off today. But no matter what, that confidence jar, I make myself write in it every day. There's always something that you can be proud of that you've done. Always, always, always. Even if it's a bad day or if there's something, you know, it wasn't a good workout, there's something that you can focus on that you did right. And so writing all those little things down, I keep them with me. When I go to swim meets, I read through those things that I've done, the things that I'm confident about, and that grounds me and reminds me of all the work that I've done. So that's taking control of the past and also allowing me to use it for, like, the present and the future, you know?
Whoa.
Big fan of the confidence jar. I read that in a book and I was like, I'm going to do that.
It was in that book, eh? That's sick. I like that a lot because it's funny you mentioned that. You're like, oh, people say it's like, I've heard people say it to me. And it's like, yeah. It's like,
no, keep a physical
like
jar.
Physical.
And even if you're not an athlete, that's like something that you're grateful for every day. I'm grateful for today. You know, I read on another, I listened to another podcast of this guy called Doc Amen. He's like Miley Cyrus's psychiatrist, but he's this like really brilliant psychiatrist. And he said, no, he has like a really great podcast.
That's sick. What's his name?
Doc Amen?
Amen, right, you did say it, yes.
Doc, D-O-C, and then Amen.
Yeah, I thought that was the name, sorry.
Yeah, no, but he says, at the end of every day, he writes down, or he thinks, I write it down because I think for me, like, journaling is good for me.
I'm the same way,
But, what went right today? You know, and so he gave the example of on the day that my mom died was a horrible day. But he still made himself write down what went right today. Connected with family, blah, 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 other things. So I feel like when you can pull yourself back to that, like, mindset of gratitude, it allows you to focus on the present and to ground yourself and stay focused. Because when you're grateful for things, you can't be anxious about what's to come or what's been in the past because you're really grateful for that moment. So yeah, 3 things, I guess. Prayer, gratitude, confidence jar. Those are like my 3 things I use to stay grounded. That was like a really long explanation.
No, that was awesome. That was awesome. Please, you have all the time in the world. That's hilarious. Oh. Something I noticed you do, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you do something really cool that I want to kind of praise you for. So you do, last year or two at least, maybe more, I'm not sure, can't remember, but you do a fundraiser on your birthday, correct? Amazing, by the way. I love that. Do you have, like, where'd that start? Like, why? Like, where did that idea kind of start? Where you raise money for something that you're passionate about or a cause? Because I'm really curious. I really want to ask you that. I was like, if this happens on camera or off camera, I want to know.
Yeah, no, I think when I was younger, my mom, like, always loved birthdays, but my dad never really did. Yeah, so we never really, like, celebrated, like, my birthday and stuff, so I always just thought that birthdays were, like, whatever. I was like,
yeah.
But then as I got older, I'm like, you know what? Like, no, like, I was born today. Like, let's freaking celebrate this.
I was the opposite.
No, yeah, so I'm the opposite of you. Now I'm like, no, if this is like, and you know what, it's not about the presents or anything that, like, seriously, like, that's every year I do a fundraiser because I don't want presents. It's about, like, for me, birthdays are about, like, an excuse to get together with people that you love or do something fun.
Yeah.
And also, I'm like, if I can use this as a day where it's gonna, like, help, because I don't really need the money or the presents, like, I don't need that, but it's, like, the one day a year where I have, like, people were for some reason inclined to give you something. Like, I don't know who started that for birthdays. It wasn't me, but whoever started it, that's a great idea. Because it's the one day a year where, like, people are inclined to give you something.
Yeah, like the attention
not inclined,
goes
but
to
like
you.
the intention goes to you. So like I don't know.
Defaults there.
I don't remember when it was that I decided to do it. Like the first year I was just like, you know, like it's my birthday and I don't want presents. Like there's really nothing that I'm like I really want. Like if I really want something that bad, I have a job, I'll go out and buy it.
Yeah,
like it's not it's not really a huge thing. So I was like at the time I was I did for 4 years. It was the Hang Tough Foundation, which is a foundation in Tallahassee that basically just gives like a space for parents who have kids with disabilities to, you know, they host events every second week, so, you know, they can drop their kid off and we play with the kids and it's like a different thing.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and so the parents can go do things that they don't have time to do when you have a child with a disability. So like, you know, maybe going for a run, going grocery shopping, going on a date, just things that you don't have time to do. And anyways, it's been one of my favorite experiences at FSU. I've met the most amazing little kids and it's been like such an amazing family. And I was like, you know what, like my birthday, that's an opportunity for me to get something for myself or be able to give it to something that's like actually like needs it. So yeah, I started doing it 2 years ago. I raised money for the Hang Tough Foundation and got a lot of donations. Like, yeah, that's like the beautiful thing about birthdays. It's like I get to celebrate with my family, but also kind of shift the attention to like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like I'm gonna get it, but I'm gonna
give it the other way. Yeah, so I did it for the Hang Tough Foundation my first year, and then this year I did it for the Hidden Opponent. Next year we'll see. I don't know.
Ooh,
yeah, I feel like it's the one day a year where people are like, you know, attention's on you for some weird reason. I don't know who started that, but I'm okay with it. So I'm like,
if I can use it this way, that's amazing. I love that. That's so cool. I had a friend of mine who just completed it, because he's been raising money for MS in honor of his Aunt Claire, who passed away from it years ago. And yeah, I think he's like $25,000 now. But he did it for like the last 5-6 months. And I remember we did the show, and then he told me about the idea. But his whole idea is like he wants to do these big challenges that are very, very tough, and like they just seem like borderline impossible, especially for somebody like, I'll say, like him. But he's very, very pro raise awareness, everything. So like I've had 5 or 6 people in the show in the last like year and a half, about year and a half, that are like, every single person has like in some form or another been a part of something greater, which I think I'm really grateful, because I'm able to witness that and pick the brains of you guys and these people.
Well, you're also an outlet for the people, like you're doing something for the greater people.
I'm trying
too.
to.
Like, that's pretty cool.
Thank you. I'm trying to. I think it's cool to understand what makes you guys tick, and like where does this kind of stem from, right? And like why do you think overall, Nina, that there's such an urge to like give back? Like why is giving the thing?
Yeah, I think, like...
especially genuine giving,
yeah,
right?
I think, like, for me, I had a lot of obstacles, like, growing up. Like, obviously, did not come from a family with a lot of money, and, like, I feel really... and just a lot of stuff growing up that was, like, really challenging.
Right.
But I think, for me, like, swimming has given me, like, a world of opportunities. Like, I've gotten to live so many things that, like, people who don't have athletic gifts, or maybe who don't have... I don't know. Like... the people who have helped me along the way are the reason for why I am the way that I am. And if there weren't certain people in my life that were there to pick me up when I fell down, I probably would have stayed down. Oof. But it's like, so because I had people that helped lift me up when I needed it, I've gotten to accomplish all these amazing things, right? And I'm still going to continue accomplishing those things, but now I feel like I'm in a position where I can be that person for someone else. So I guess that's kind of where that comes from. You know? Like, I feel like we are our best selves when we are connecting with others and when we can uplift others. And, like, I've had, like, a lot of help over my life from family and friends and just different things. And, swimming has really allowed me to, live so many amazing things, like national teams, junior national teams, like, getting an education out of it. And, like, amazing. I've just, like, I want to be able to help people that were, like, little girls like me that were kind of disadvantaged and didn't have a lot of money or a lot of things growing up and still made it work. Like, I just want people to know that, like, you can make it work. Like, you don't have to be born with everything to be able to accomplish something in life.
And I love those stories too, which is what intrigues me about a lot of people, is not so much like, oh, they had all these opportunities and they made the most of them. That's awesome. Yeah. But if you had less than that, right, and you're able to make something out of nothing, or maybe just, most people just aren't as fortunate as some other people, right? So I think they're all created the same.
There's always adversity. No matter what you're born with, no matter what you do, there's always going to be adversity, but some people just aren't, don't have access to the resources to be able to overcome adversity.
For sure. Yeah. No, it
so
makes
some
sense.
People, whether it's, the people that you've had surrounded, like, you're just like, I'm telling you, like, if I didn't have people that taught me how to pick myself up after failure and after challenges, I could have stayed down, but I didn't, and I learned how to be able to pick myself up and keep going, and I just want to be able to do the same for, like, other people,
Amazing. Yeah. I think that's really cool. And that, what was it? I was listening to this speech, and it's such a famous speech. I know you've heard it. I think it's, like, from this admiral guy, because I'm very into the art of, like, conversations and speaking as, like, a skill, right? And this guy, I think his name's like William McRaven or whatever, and he did a speech for University of Texas, and it was, that sounds like a university, right on.
Yeah, so Austin.
Yeah, so what he did was he did the whole speech, but then he's like, their whole motto, I think, is something like, what starts here changes the world, right? And it went from, well, there's a ripple effect, right? Of like, ooh, if one person in here changed the lives of just 8 people, and then each one of those people changes the lives of 8 people, and then it kind of ripples into this, like, greater thing. And he's like, over a couple generations, we changed the course of the world. I was like, oh, interesting. So I think it's almost silly for people to, if they have those opportunities, to not make the most of them, in the sense of being grateful and raising awareness for things bigger than them, or creating something or an avenue that allows for people to make something better, right? And like do something better than themselves or greater than themselves, and
absolutely
raise money or awareness or cause or bring attention to something, or, oh, you don't have the opportunities that I had? Well, I'm going to change that. And that's something that's like, I've loved summer camps and working there for that exact reason. Like all growing up, I was able to see like kids who's, half of them, there was a percentage of the budget, I think it was like 15-20%, was allocated to kids from like the Sudbury Manitoulin district. So it was like all foster kids and kids in like homes and stuff. So you can tell the difference, right? Because there was like upper middle class kids, and then there's the difference between them and like the kids they have 2 pairs of shoes they came with, but they have 4 individual shoes, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So they wore 2 pairs of shoes, but they didn't have the same matching shoes. They're like, why? It's because my brother has the other pair. So all this like little stuff, and that's just a light example, but being able to do that, I think is so cool, so powerful.
Gosh. Yeah. And like, I totally agree with that, because like, you know, I spent like a long time like being bitter about like just because I felt like, oh well, if I had different things growing up, like maybe I could have been even better, blah blah blah. But then like you realize how many people are even more disadvantaged than like you would think, I guess. And like it's
100%.
It's not about the cards that you're dealt, it's like how you play them, you know.
Exactly.
But so when I was my second year before COVID hit and stuff, for a year in Tallahassee, I volunteered at like my local church in a mentorship program. And like obviously, it's fine, I'll call her after, she's the one picking me up. And obviously, like, racial segregation is a big issue in America.
Yeah.
Like, racism is still a very prevalent thing. And so I got to work for, like, I literally got to witness that firsthand. So I volunteered at this church into a mentorship program where you're assigned a scholar and you're their mentor. And so you do, you know, you play with them for 30 minutes, you do homework with them for 30 minutes, and you do Bible study for 30 minutes. And it's, you know, in Tallahassee, there's just areas where, you know, it's all African Americans that have parents that do not give a crap about them. They are raised to think that school isn't a thing that matters, that, you know, and it was just like being, like, it was a really challenging thing for me because I'd never seen such poor behaved kids in my life.
Wow.
And the first tendency when I was placed in that situation is like, what the heck, why are you behaving like this? But then you look at the system, and it's the American system that has failed them, and also their parents that have failed them because the system's failed their parents. And it's just people that...
the opposite way.
Yeah, and it's like they don't have people like I had to pull me out of certain places and to tell me like, hey, like, I believe in you, you can do this. They haven't had people to do that. So the program was like really challenging because I'd never seen such poor behaved kids, but also like really rewarding to be able to feel like you're like firsthand making an impact on someone's life, to be like, hey, you can have more than the cards that you were dealt with, you know, like you can play them better than you think. Yeah, but it's crazy, right? Like you just like, you're like, again, that's coming back to like the victim card, is like you can always look at yourself as a victim until you actually realize like different things are going on in the world, and being like, being a victim isn't cool. Like, there's always going to be someone that is going to have it a lot worse than you. So, like, how can you look at the cards that you have, play them in a certain way to help yourself, and also use that to be able to help others? That's what I hope to do in life anyways.
Yeah. It's cool. It's cool, right, to be able to think of, let's do something greater, right? You're living for something higher.
Yeah.
I think doing that also, I find, because I've shifted like backboard, being bitter at certain things, certain times, right?
Right? Yeah. Oh, we all do it, of course.
It's tough, but doing that kind of allows us to, doing the good things for the greater good and having that effect on people, it just makes you more positive because you have perspective, right? Which is why I love traveling so much. That's kind of the reason I dive into traveling. Is I'm like, you know, I need a dose of perspective. Let's go to Romania. Yeah. You know, so that's kind of how my brain works with that, and seeing
how different
all
cultures
that stuff
live.
is. Yeah.
Text her back.
Oh, no worries. No worries. I was gonna ask. I was like, I hope she's not like waiting for like half hour.
Yeah. No, she said 9:20, so we still got 3
Oh, sick.
Okay, well, if you're having one, I'm having
you're gonna do one, you're gonna do two.
God.
Amazing.
Do you want to read, or do you want to hear my favorite
I thought that was gonna happen. I was like, that's embarrassing if that spews everywhere, but that's okay. I do.
Okay, this is like, it's my...
This is life quote, too.
Yeah, it's my background on my laptop. It's called The Man in the Arena by Theodore Roosevelt. You ever heard of it? Have you ever heard of it?
Heard of, yes, never.
This is like the best quote. This is like, shapes everything that I do. I could probably recite it by heart, but I want to read it so I don't fuck it up.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
So this is Theodore Roosevelt.
Teddy.
So the man in the arena. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes shorthand again and again, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. Boom! Isn't that a good one, though?
I like that.
But that just comes back to, like, you know, there's always going to be people in your life that are going to be criticizing the heck out of what everyone else is doing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, if you're not in the arena actually trying, you should never be criticizing others.
Right.
Because, like,
well,
it's all about your effort, and if you're in there trying, like, success is going to look different on different days, and your best is going to look different on different days, but, like, if you're in the arena, you shouldn't be listening to, like, the critics that aren't, you know? Yeah,
that's
like my favorite quote.
Amazing.
Right?
I love that. Yeah, that's really cool. I like that a lot. Powerful. I like that I've allowed whenever, like, I'll go to the gym and I'll get my ass kicked. And not, like, figuratively, like, literally. Like, literally, like, dumped on my neck, face into the mat, strangled. And be like, well, this sucks. This is uncomfortable. I should be doing the opposite, right? It should be me. But those days have kind of allowed me to, I've been bitter and be like, yo, fuck, I should, you know, or like, yeah, I'll get them later. But it's like, no, you didn't. So being able to kind of check yourself and appreciate those days and being grateful for, hey, I made it there. And like you said a while ago, you're like, yeah, I made it to practice. I made it through practice, even though I was like ridiculously exhausted, right? It's like, that goes in the jar.
Yeah.
Right, so being like, oh, I got my ass kicked all day against people it's usually the other way around. Just wasn't my day. I was sore. I got like injured a bit soon. It's like, why? Those days allow us to, like you said earlier, learn, go back, and understand. Like, ooh, well, why did I let him take me down? Why was I being lazy in these positions? Why didn't I fight for it? It's like, oh, why was I? Because I was tired. Well, why was I tired? Okay, but why was my sleep crap? Right? I go back until I find the source of the problem, and I'm like, okay, how do we eliminate that for next time? Or if we can't eliminate completely, at least minimize it. Right.
Well, I think the biggest thing for that, too, is, like, something that I've learned. Because, like, another thing was, like, I used to get anxious going to practice because I was like, what if I don't hit these times? What if I don't... Yeah, to practice because I cared so much. And I was like, what if I don't hit this time? Whatever. But a big thing is, like, realizing that, like, your best is going to look different on different days. Mm-hmm. And that could be due to sleep, maybe outside stressors, maybe school, maybe. But, like, your best is always going to look different. And as long as you're going into a situation knowing that you gave your best, you can't be anxious for the outcome or upset with the outcome because it was your best on that day. And sometimes, like, I know you understand swimming terms, sometimes my best on some days is going to be holding 31s for 50s breaststroke, and sometimes it's going to be 33s, and sometimes it'll be 34s. And, like, it's really frustrating to go through that, right? But, like, it's the rule of thirds. Like, when you're training for any kind of dream or any kind of goal, it's like the rule of thirds. Third of the time you're going to be feeling really good. Third of the time you're going to be feeling okay, and a third of the time you're going to be feeling really crappy. Sometimes when you're in the crappy zone, that's all you're going to focus on, but remember that that's only roughly a third of the time.
It's a valley.
It's a valley, right? So as long as you're giving your best, you can't really be upset with, like, what your best is on that day because sometimes it's going to just look different, and that's just, like, life, you know?
Yeah, and everybody, like you said,
everybody goes through it.
Everybody goes through it, which is that, remembering that always helps. It's like, listen, okay, get our ass kicked today. What's tomorrow got? Or how do we bounce back? Or, oh, it was a great day. Like, I found days where I'll express gratitude. Or one thing I've done lately that's changed kind of my overall, like, one small little thing, right? It does so much good. And this example of my business partner and I, Kevin, we talk a lot about, like, nobody wants to work anymore. Nobody wants to work. Everywhere is hiring. There's so many people, but nobody wants to work. Nobody knows how to work. Everybody, you know. But the people who are working, I'm going to be the nice. They can mess up my order. I don't give a fuck. I don't care. I'm like, cool. They're like, oh, I'm like, it doesn't matter. I'll tip you the same.
Yeah.
Tip you the same. You can make mistakes. You can give me something I completely. You can mess up I can order something with onions and you don't give me nothing. I'm like, whatever. And I'm going to be uber polite. I'm going to be very polite. Like, almost like, kind of annoyingly polite. I'm like, oh, very much, thank you, please. Oh, dude, like, oh my god. I'm like hugging these strangers I'm working, like, who are working with me. They're like, what is going on? I'm like, that feels so good doing that, right? And it allows you to kind of make, even doing that on days that suck, in the valleys, just helps.
Well, kindness is
overall.
free, right?
Yeah.
And by helping others, you actually help yourself. Like, that gives you a sense of, like...
Which is crazy why we don't do it more.
It's I'm going to butcher this term. Ubuntu? Ubuntu.
Upundu.
Ubuntu. Wait, I'm going to look it up.
Ubuntu.
Yeah.
I need to get my producer with a laptop throwing this up on the big screen.
Ubuntu.
Now you got it pretty quick, so that's okay.
Wait.
Ubuntu.
1 second. I want to explain it to you.
Sick. I'm excited. I haven't heard of this one, so I'm intrigued.
There is a word in South Africa, Ubuntu, a word that captures Mandela's greatest gift, his recognition that we are all bound together in ways that are invisible to the eye, that there are a oneness to humanity, that we achieve ourselves by sharing ourselves with others and caring for those around us. So there's this Netflix documentary called The Playbook. You should watch it. It's really good.
Yeah?
Yeah, The Playbook.
All right, this close to asking what it was called.
And it's
Force of habit.
and it's like 5 really like historically great coaches and kind of like their rules for life. Mm-hmm. And the coach of the Boston Celtics, Doc. Yeah, he was the first episode, and he said the mantra that he coached his team by was Ubuntu. And that's the thing, that we live to bring out good in others. And you can't be threatened by someone else being good, because someone else being good makes you better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Right? Isn't that so powerful? You should watch it. It was really good. I watched it today, and I was like, oh, revolutionary.
Revolutionary indeed. That's so cool. I have Netflix, too. This is awesome.
You have to watch it. Oh my gosh, it's so good.
Sick. So... You said it was an African
African term.
Yeah. Okay.
Ubuntu.
Tell me about your month in Europe that just happened.
Oh, that was really awesome.
Where'd you go?
I went to Norway for 3 weeks. I did a meet in Norway.
Nice.
And then I went to Finland for a week, and then Italy. Yeah, it was kind of like I went to trials this year and I had an okay meet, but I didn't make the national team. And then I didn't want to train at FSU the whole summer, obviously, because I wasn't going back, and I was kind of ready to close out that chapter. And I also didn't want to come back here and train all summer because it's just hard without the pool here and stuff. And
yeah, that's lame.
Yeah, that's so I was like, okay, like what are my... And again, this is the beautiful thing about swimming. I have all these amazing friends from different places, but one of my best friends at school is on the Norwegian national team. She was like, why don't you come to Norway to train with me and my team? And I was like, why don't I come to Norway? So yeah,
amazing.
Right? So I went to Norway for 3 weeks and trained with her and her team, which was so awesome. Got to experience, different coaching, I really, really enjoyed it. Then I raced at a meet there, and then I went to train with my friend in Finland for a week, who's on the Finnish national team.
Sick.
And then I took a little 3-day vacation with another teammate in Italy, and then came home.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that's the beauty of swimming. It's allowed me to connect with people from everywhere, which is like really awesome.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome indeed. And I think where in Italy you go?
Milan.
Oh, nice. I've never stayed. You were there, yeah, okay. Because I never stayed in Milan. We kind of drove past it. Mm-hmm. We did about 6 weeks of a road trip. So I flew in.
Through Italy?
No, through Europe.
Cool.
Yeah, it was nuts. It was absolutely insane. It was just, my brain's tired just thinking of it. We started in Amsterdam. I flew into Amsterdam. I took the train to Germany, and my friend lived 2 hours north of Frankfurt, in a town called Hockenberg. I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Different time.
Yeah.
And my buddy picked me up. He drove from Paris, where he rented a car. He drove from Paris, picked me up in the town, and then we went to Berlin, and then kind of did this. Up Croatia, down Italy. We went as south as Bologna. And then went across, up, and then went straight up through from Barcelona. We went across, up through Andorra, a small little country there, and then through France to Belgium to the Netherlands, and then back to Amsterdam.
So cool.
From there. Yeah, it was absolutely
traveling
insane.
is seeing different cultures is so awesome and important, I think. Yeah.
I think so. At least one of my questions. So what I'm doing is I try to do one ridiculous trip in every year, right, since graduating. I did Italy for a week after in 2019, and in 2020 I did a 2-week road trip across Canada, and this year or last year I can't remember what I did. Anyways, I did a couple camping trips. But where would you recommend I go?
I think you should go to Norway.
Norway. Interesting.
Norway was the most prosperous country I have ever seen.
Yeah?
Yeah, the people are so lovely and so nice, but I think just electric cars everywhere because they don't tax electric cars. Yeah.
Right.
And like, so there's all these fjords, which are on the ocean, right? All these like peaks that come in. Yeah. So Norwegian summer, gorgeous. Ocean and water and mountains everywhere. Like scenery like you've never seen before.
I've seen videos. I'm like, I gotta go.
And they're just such a prosperous country. Like, healthcare is free. Post-secondary school is free. So I didn't see a lot of homeless people, obviously, because there's so many opportunities. You can just go to school.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the people are so nice. The scenery was gorgeous. The food was really good. If you like seafood, you'd like Norway.
I do like seafood. I love seafood, yeah.
Other than Norway, I'd say Fiji. Fiji was really cool. Yeah. Okay. The people there, like, have a different way of living. Like, very, like, slow-paced and just, like...
I love it.
Grateful. And
I think that'd be good for me.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone there is so nice and just, like, so welcoming, and, like, you meet someone and it's like, oh, you're family now, Like, so that's really cool. And obviously I like the ocean and stuff, so Fiji was cool. But yeah, Norway and Fiji, I would say.
Okay. I'm trying to have, like, a handful of people for the next month or two give me suggestions, and then I'm going to make, like, my Instagram followers decide.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that little, like, risky, spice, bit of risk.
Okay, I like it. But let me know what actually, I'm going to vote. I'm going to vote
for Norway. I'll put it on the list, too. Because I have another friend of mine who's going to say the exact same thing. But, so yeah, as we kind of get to the end of this, do you have any, like, final, you already said amazing things, amazing quotes, do you have any kind of final pieces of, like, wisdom or advice or tidbits that you want to, like, drop for myself, the audience, message you want to leave? I'm sure this won't be the last and only time we do this, but for now.
I would say to inspire others, you first have to inspire yourself. And that comes from, like, being true to yourself. But, like, to be able to inspire other people or feel like you're doing something good for the world, you have to find, like, what drives you in life. And I'd say if, like, you're unhappy with what you're doing, it's probably because you haven't found your passion. But, like, to be able to inspire others, you got to inspire yourself first and really, like, follow your journey that, like, you feel good about. Yeah. Amazing. I would say that's, like, the biggest piece.
I like that. I like that a lot. Where can people find you? Where can people connect? Where can people reach out? Where can people...
Follow me on the gram at Nina Kucheran. Or look up Gator Swim Dive roster. I'll be on there this year. I'm so pumped for that. We're going to have an unreal team this year. I actually cannot wait.
Amazing. So I'm super grateful you were able to sit down across me and chat with me today. I'm a big fan of your career as of what you've done, and I cannot wait to... Fingers crossed, I'm trying to get to Paris for media. I want to see you swimming. I'll be the loudest person in the room.
Okay, well, if I make it, I'll get you a deck pass. I'll be like, Swim Canada, this guy's covering it, podcast, I will get you a pass.
I'll be forever grateful. I'm super grateful you were able to chat with me today, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
No worries.